Alrighty. Hello, QGIS enthusiasts. It is the last session of the day, and I'd like to welcome my friends into the session room. We have Tim with us, we have Admire with us, we have Charles with us, and we have my internet backup Nick with us. So I'd like to just invite everyone to sit back and relax and watch the amazing presentation that these gentlemen have put together for us. If you have read our little blurb on the event, this is the QGIS session, and it is about an open source GIS stack. And I would like to hand over to Tim, who will be taking us through. Over to you, Tim.
Woohoo. Hi, everybody. And I'm kind of a little bit nervous today because Charles and Admire and I have been cooking up this stack for some time, but there's still a few rough edges. So what we're going to show you today is definitely not the polished product, but just a work in progress. But hopefully it will spark some ideas in you and also maybe get you interested to come and contribute to what we're busy building. And we're going with release early, show early, release often kind of approach. So what is an open source GIS stack? You may be wondering to yourself. And I always, when I tell people about open source and I present like slides and whatever, I always show them like, Postgres and GeoServer and, QGIS and all the different things that you can build, and Ogre and GDAL and all these kind of things that all kind of fit together. But usually it's a case of that you have to go and self-assemble all those different parts. And what we're trying to do is make a maximalist Docker-based server-side geospatial stack.
Alrighty, Tim, what's maximalist?
Right. So a maximalist is like a revulsion of all things minimalist. It's an attempt to go in the opposite direction to where Zen minimalism will take you, and put everything that you can possibly think of exactly into one big box and make it all kind of like work together. So if there's an open source geospatial technology that can be put in a Docker container, more or less, we're trying to kind of fit it into the stack. Maybe not quite as bad as that, but really the idea is to really just go for everything, batteries included, and you can use or not use parts of the stack if you want to, but you can kind of have everything running out from like one configuration. So what's in our maximalist stack? And this is not actually a complete... am I sharing my screen? I'm not sharing my screen.
Not yet.
Let me find this button here quickly. So hopefully you can see my screen now.
Got it.
So what's in our stack is... not only these things, but at least these things. So maybe starting from the center, or there's no center in this picture, but from the center of the stack would be QGIS Server. And obviously as a QGIS devotee and a company full of QGIS devotees, we want to be able to publish QGIS-based projects on our stack. And also as a devotee of Postgres and PostGIS, I couldn't imagine building an open source geospatial stack without PostGIS and Postgres in the stack. And then we've got a bunch of other technologies that we've kind of been including in the stack, including map proxy, which is kind of the missing bit if you're using QGIS Server and you want to cache the page requests. GeoServer, which is like an incredibly powerful and wonderful Open Geospatial Consortium web service platform. OpenStreetMap, because that's an amazing source for data to put into our stack. And Input and Mergin, which provide an awesome way to move data from mobile and from collaborative person collaborations into the stack. And ODM, or Open Drone Map, because that's an awesome way to produce your own imagery. There's actually a lot more bits in the stack, and I'm going to show you just kind of like a bit of a conceptual flow. And I should say that you can probably swap out some of these components with other parts. So I know that our friends over at OpenQuake are busy preparing QField Cloud, for example, and I imagine that we could build similar architectures with QField Cloud in the future as well. But the workflow would start with you probably on the mobile layer here, where you're out in the field and you're collecting data, and it gets put into a geo package on your mobile device, and it gets synced back to Mergin Cloud. And Mergin Cloud is like the web platform, syncing platform. You can think of it like GitHub, but for mobile geospatial data collection projects. And from there, you can then sync your data over to your desktop using the Mergin plugin. But we've also got this component here, which is Mergin DB Sync, which is also developed by Lutra, who built Mergin and Input. And this will allow you to take that geo package and synchronize it into a Postgres database. And then that becomes part of your stack, of your PostGIS and Postgres stack. And there's a two-way sync enabled there. So you can actually edit stuff in QGIS, for example, in your Postgres database, and then push the data back to Mergin Cloud. And then there's, I've got small holding written here as an example from doing my prototyping on my small farm where I live. But basically, once the data is in Postgres, then you can use other applications on top of it, for example, Django or GeoServer or QGIS Server, to then publish the data out onto the web. It might be privately in your intranet or to the broader intranet. And if you're publishing with QGIS Server, you probably want to put map proxy in front of your layers if they're going to be heavily trafficked destinations. And then in front of that, we have Nginx, and we want to have SSL built by default. So we've got some magic about setting up SSL certificates and so on. And then in front of that, you've got down on the desktop, you've got your QGIS client or web clients. So there's a lot of different pieces, and this is not even all of the things you could be doing, but really just to give you a sense of what you could be building with one integrated stack. We've got other parts in there, like I said, like Open Drone Map and OpenStreetMap data coming into the stack. But really the goal is to enable you to create an architecture like this with as little effort as possible. And so what we're going to be doing in this session is deploying the stack from on a fresh machine. I've got a little Intel NUC box sitting in sitting on the desk in my office here, and it's not a very powerful machine, so some of the rendering might not be the fastest, but we're going to log into there and we're going to have a look at like how we set the stack up. So we're going to do some nerdy stuff, so this is my terminal session logged into that machine. I'm going to pump up my font size a bit, so hopefully it's all clear to see. And I've already installed Docker and Docker Compose and a few other bits and pieces in there. And I should mention that, sorry, I didn't want to show that one. I want to show this one here. I should mention that we've got, just put this into preview mode here, a README which explains everything about how to get things set up. So if you're starting on a clean server, I wonder if I can just do that maybe. If you're starting on a clean server, then there's the same picture I just showed you now. There's all the kind of, assuming you're on Ubuntu, the sort of basics of setting up the machine, even from just a clean install, setting up a firewall, setting up some security things, installing Docker, and basically checking out the open source geospatial stack. So that's the part that I'm starting at now. But if you want to know how to do all the stuff to get the machine prepared, it's all in the README for the project. So here I am, and I've got a checkout of the project, and I'm just going to show that there's nothing running on my machine. And now this is let's just see. So this I've got really just one thing running on my machine, which is I'm on the wrong machine. That's why I'm so confused. Hang on, sorry. Here I am on the server. So I've got nothing running. Okay, good. Whew. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a script called make configure, and it's going to ask me a bunch of questions. And at the end of it, I'll have the first part of the stack spun up. So it does warn you that when you run this script, it's kind of like a wizard. So it's going to ask you a bunch of questions. You fill in the answers as best you can, and it's going to copy a bunch of template files over to like actual configuration files, and then start the whole thing up. So it's just giving me a warning that I might be causing some destruction. And one of the things we tried to do was to set it up so that everything's got like as best secure as you can. So we don't use some default admin password for GeoServer, for example. So you can see the first thing it's doing already is like composing a password for GeoServer. And I know that's going out on the internet, so don't worry, I'll change the password later. But and we'll basically all the passwords, change them over to different, generated passwords, and it will create SSL certificate with Let's Encrypt, and it will try to use SSL for all the communications between the different parts. So the first thing we want to know is what time zone we're in. So I'm in Europe. Can't spell Europe, but I am in Europe. Let's go.
And just note that the terminal prompts you and it tells you where to get these time zone names from Wikipedia there.
Yep. So
TZDB.
Yeah. So it's this column here that you basically want to copy a time zone from. So I'm in Lisbon, and then it wants to know our domain name. So I just created the domain name ahead of time, but you just need to point a valid domain to your server. You need that for your Let's Encrypt certificate. And then you just punch in all the questions that it asks you to make katoza.com. And then I'm going to be sharing my user credentials for Mergin. Please don't hack me to bits. I'll change my password straight afterwards. But so it wants to know my Mergin username, and then my Mergin password. See all the hackers running off to hack me as I speak. And then a Mergin project. And what this is going to do is going to take one of my projects from Mergin. Let's just go to Mergin here. So this is kind of like a dummy account. And you'll see that I've got two projects in here. One is the one that's created by default when you install Mergin on your phone. And the other one is a little demo that I made. And so it wants to know the name of one project that you want to synchronize into the stack. And there is also a way to synchronize all your projects as well, but that's a different Hackfest day to show you. But in this scheme, we're going to be just synchronizing the one. So I'm going to just copy that name. And then it wants to know the name of the geo package within the Mergin project. So you can find that by just going to look and check what name you gave it. One thing that I've done is also used a naming convention where the QGIS project name matches the folder name. And that's if we want to publish it with QGIS Server later, then the Docker container that we're using for QGIS Server likes that sort of naming convention. All right, and then it wants to know the database scheme in which I want to mirror my Mergin QGIS project. So I'm going to just call it QGIS_demo. All right, and then there are a bunch of questions about creating an OSM mirror, and I'm not going to cover that in detail today. Mainly because there's a small bug that we found earlier today. So, but when it's working, basically what you can do is you can set a clip region, like a box around your like your house or your province or your country or what have you, or the polygon of your country. And then you can give it a PBF file, which is a binary dump file of the OpenStreetMap database, and it will load that all into your Postgres database and keep that as a live mirror of whatever's going into OpenStreetMap with a whole bunch of mappings. But I think we'll do another session in future on that because it's a whole topic on itself. And just to give some kudos to Etienne Trimal, who was, when he still worked for katoza, he built that Docker OSM mirror tool for us. Okay, so now it's going to get a Let's Encrypt certificate for us. Hopefully that's going to work without any problem. Okay, so we've now got a SSL certificate, and now wants the URL for a country PBF file. So I'm going to go through the steps I would have done anyway, just to show you how it works. So you basically go to Geofabric, which is an amazing effort from, I think Geofabric itself is a company, that they produce these snapshots from OpenStreetMap, like split out by continent and then by or subregions, and then by if you go into the Europe, for example, then you can see all the different countries within Europe that they cover, and then once you get into a country, then you can download OpenStreetMap data, which is, it's a snapshot from, usually it says somewhere on here 13 hours ago, for example, here, and then open that in QGIS. But in our case, we want this PBF file link here, and what that will do is the script will go off and fetch that PBF file, and when there's no bug in the OpenStreetMap part of the orchestration, it will actually spin up in the database. It will spin up a copy of the OpenStreetMap data for that region based on the mappings that we've done. So now we've finished the script, and if we do docker compose ps again, we'll see that there's a whole bunch of things running, and you'll see some of them are still busy starting up. And so if we just give it a few seconds, we'll see that the whole thing's running. Okay, so there's the database is running now, and the GeoServer usually takes a little bit longer, but I'll show you while it's busy starting that we can go there. It creates this env.env file. And in here are all the key settings for your orchestrated set of services. So if you want to find the password for the Postgres account, for example, you can find it in there. I also forgot to mention that one of the other things that gets set up is an SCP server that you can use as a drop zone to drop files into various other different services. So let's see if we can connect to, let me go back to my script here. So that's 0 to hero there. So let's see if we can connect to Postgres and actually whether we've got a running Postgres instance. So I'm going to go over to my QGIS build here. I've started a fresh profile just really to show that we're doing everything from scratch, and I'll show you the complete setup process. So stick this side and this one this side. All right, so I'm going to go and create a new Postgres connection over here, and I'm just going to call it OSG. That's an open source OGS. What do we call it? Open Geospatial Stack. And the host I'm going to be pointing to is now on my private network. Now, one thing that we want to mention is that, like I said, we try to make everything quite secure. So Admire very nicely went and updated the katoza Docker Postgres image, and I just want to make a quick detour there, or even ask Admire, do you want to tell the world a little bit about your one of your love childs? I'll bring it up on the screen here.
All right. So I think by default, the katoza Docker image for PostGIS had SSL support, but what we just realized a couple of days ago is that for the SSL connection between clients was not being enforced. So what we did, we just went in to update that part so that you can set that up within environment variables. So you could either probably use self-signed certificates, or you could probably get a certificate from a trusted certificate authority, and you can pass them as volumes, and you can set up an environment variables that specifies that when you connect to an external client like QGIS or PSQL, then it enforces SSL. And we've also done that for between Docker to Docker. So we currently also just busy trying to change that to give an option if people want to have Docker containers communicate over SSL, or if they just want to disable that as well.
Yeah, and you can see Admire's work here is it's published on Docker Hub, and it's had about 10 million plus downloads of this Docker container. It's really well used, and Admire especially, has spent a lot of time just upgrading it with the latest PostgreSQL releases or PostgreSQL releases, and improving it. So if you go to the project, there's a very detailed README file, which again Admire maintains nicely, which explains. Am I in the right one? Yeah, I'm in the right one. Where's the long version of the README file, Admire?
No, you're not in the right one. You're in the PostGIS one.
Postgres, sorry.
No, it's supposed to be in the katoza one. You're not in the katoza one.
Sorry. I was going to say it looked very much shorter than our. There we go. So so there's a very detailed README here explaining how to set up all the different options. You can, for example, do replication, and there's various add-ons, extensions shipped out the box, and there's you can run like SQL to initialize it. You can. It's very, very tweakable, let's say.
Tim, can you possibly zoom in a little bit? The writing's quite tiny. Thank you.
Sure. I wasn't expecting you to read it, or just to show you that it's there, that there's a detailed, document explaining how the whole Docker PostGIS orchestration is done. But, so sorry for viciously scrolling through that very fast. So that's what Admire has been maintaining and built. And what I'm doing now is I'm connecting it with this require SSL. So with the newest work that he's done, you can connect from QGIS to PostgIS with the encrypted connection. And but this is actually still not public. It's only available on my intranet, but you could, in theory, open it publicly if you felt so inclined. And there are options there. You can also screen off certain IP address ranges to only be able to look at it, and so on. So by default, it makes a database called GIS, and I'm going to just use some simple authentication here. So the user gets created as Docker, and by looking in this env file, I can find out what the generated password was for this Postgres. And then I'm going to tick my two favorite options over here and test the connection. And so I've just connected from my desktop here to the little nook in the other side of the office. And if I go and have a look inside of here, I can see that there are already some tables created here. These are just the standard PostGIS extension tables that get added by default, and you can see that we also install pgcron by default. Okay, so we've got a database just from answering those 10 or so questions. And let's see if our GeoServer is running now. So you can see GeoServer is now in a healthy state. So if I go to there, we get a landing page, courtesy of Charles. Thank you, Charles. And we can talk about that a bit more in a minute as well. And if we go to GeoServer, we'll see that there's a running GeoServer instance. And we can, again, get the password for that GeoServer admin user over here. All right, so I'm logged in, and you can see we've got like a blank GeoServer. And within that stack, I can then connect GeoServer to the PostgreSQL database, and then I'll show you just some quick example workflows of how you might want to use QGIS to publish data to PostgreSQL, use GeoServer to publish the data from PostgreSQL to the web, and then use QGIS server client to consume the data back from GeoServer. So let's have a quick look at that. So I'm going to go and create a new workspace quickly. And we're just going to call this like DB or something like that, or database. And then in the workspace, I'm going to add a store. And that's going to be a PostgreSQL store. You can see all these other types of, let me just zoom in a bit as well. You can see all these other types of stores that you can have. This is just standard GeoServer configuration. And this GeoServer Docker is also maintained by Admire. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that the GeoServer Docker container, Admire did a big security audit. Somebody sent us a whole, they did a full professional security audit of the container. And we tried to address all of the issues there. So we really spent a lot of time trying to make it like hardened, secure environment to put your data into. So I'm going to go here to say Postgres, and I'm going to call it, I'm just going to call it GIS because that's the name of the database. Now the host is Docker to Docker communication. So I'm talking from the one Docker container to the other, and so I can use the service names for the Docker containers, which in this case is called DB for the Postgres service. The database is GIS, and I'll just connect to the public schema for now. And then I go back to my environment file to look for the Postgres password over here. Sorry. All right, and I think that's all I need to do. I forgot to set the SSL mode over here. So I've got to also set this to require SSL. Okay, and so I've now made a secure connection between GeoServer and the database. So let's go back to QGIS and make a little layer. I'll make a shapefile. I know that I will. No, actually, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to make it in the database. What am I doing? So I'm going to say over here a new table, and I'm going to just call this I heart QGIS, and I'm going to give it an ID column, and I'm going to give it a name. And we'll make it a polygon, something like that. And we'll put it in as 3857 here. Okay. I'm just going to drop in some OpenStreetMap data as a backdrop, and then I'm going to draw a big fat heart on the top here. Let's go. So let's see how good my sketching skills are in QGIS digitizing. Oops, okay. Okay, so now from QGIS, I've just created that layer, and I'm just going to save my edits. And I'm going to go back to Postgres and, sorry, to GeoServer. And I'm just going to refresh this page here, and it should, let me see. Let's go to create. Sorry, what am I doing? Add a new layer from DB QGIS, and there you can see the layer I made. It's available in GeoServer, and if I say publish over here, I can put in all the usual metadata stuff. You just basically got to click these two things just to compute the bounding box for the layer. And now, just by dragging and dropping on QGIS Desktop, I have created a new layer. So I can go to the layer preview here. And there's my amazing work of art. And that's published as a WMS service. So I can take this link over here, go back to QGIS, and do some recursive GISing here. So I'm going to go create a new WMS connection. I'm going to call this OGS GeoServer. And I'm just going to take the defaults for everything. And if I look in here now, I can see that there's this layer has been published. And if I drag it and drop it in here, there it comes in the same gray styling. So this layer, this yellow one is drawn as a vector layer in QGIS by pulling the data out of Postgres. And this gray one is drawn in QGIS as a WMS layer by pulling the data from GeoServer. And I can likewise go to the WFS part here and say, and I just need to swap this in part of the URL to WFS, and hopefully that will also work. Okay, so now I'm adding that same layer in a third time, but this time it's coming in via the Web Feature Service protocol, and this is, it's actually a vector layer. So I don't know if I've enabled editing on the GeoServer side, but you can go and tweak things. And in theory, if I tweak it here and save it, let's see if it lets me save it. Okay, we didn't have the transactions enabled. But if I go to this one, the yellow one, and make an edit, just make something really obvious like that. It's a little bit broken looking heart, and I save my changes there. And then I go back to here, and I just do something that will refresh the layer. You'll see that the changes coming from the web services are immediate. So that's a really, just the simple part is an amazing workflow that you can publish data on the web via GeoServer, but using QGIS as the authoring platform, you just basically connect to the database, draw your polygons, or import data, drag and drop a shapefile into the database, and it will appear in the list of available layers for GeoServer, and then you can publish it.
If it doesn't seem like a big deal, you've probably just not set up these services often enough.
Yeah, it's sometimes quite daunting to go through all the documentation of all these projects and read all the steps that you have to follow to get everything configured. So that's what we're trying to do with our maximalism, is basically do all that stuff for you. So you need to know a little bit about connecting to things, but you don't have to know how to internally set up the server.
So as a user, you can just plug and play Docker Compose up, and the system administration is handled by us, essentially.
Yeah. And you can imagine there's all sorts of great workflows you can be doing now, because you've got this database which is linked into a web publishing platform. Whatever you do in the database can be immediately published. And GeoServer's also got all those permissions frameworks and things that you can also use as well. So I'm skipping politely past OpenStreetMap because I said that we've got some issues with it, but normally you can do something like this on the command line and actually bring up the OpenStreetMap mirror, and then it would appear as another schema here. You'd see OSM, and you'd have all the tables from OpenStreetMap appear here. So we'll come back another time and show you that working. Let's go to see how we can publish a QGIS project on the web. So that is not just a layer through PostGIS, but a whole QGIS project. And to do that, we're going to use SCP, which is secure copy. And we run in the stack, we run an SCP server on port 2222. And that's one of several ways that we've looked at of pushing data up onto the server. Mergin sync is another way to do it. And we're also looking at maybe putting something like, what are those things we've been looking at, Charles? C file or some...
all sorts of web dev and file sharing systems.
Web dev kind of approaches. So there's a whole lot of options. We just want to find something that's nice and intuitive and also that's easy to manage. So I'm going to make a connection here in my file manager to that server. Now, see. So let me just get my ducks in a row. So what I've done here, I'm in GNOME, and if you're in Windows, you'd need to use, there's a WinSCP, it's a free application. And if you're on Mac, I think there's some built-in things into Finder that you can use to connect to SCP. But basically what we're going to be doing is connecting to... creating a connection string like this. It's just a URL basically, and then we're going to hit connect. The first time you connect, it will tell us that we don't know, we have never used this computer before, do we trust its key? And we're going to say login, okay. And then what we've got now on this left side is a login into the Docker container, which is running the SCP environment. And there's this data directory, and there's different directory folders created for different purposes. So you'll see there's a QGIS projects one here. I'll put my zoom on here a bit so you can see. So there's QGIS projects created here. But there are also different places. So for example, if you want to upload a shapefile and publish it via GeoServer, you can do it through here. Or we would talk about ODM another time probably as well. But if you want to upload imagery for processing via ODM, you can drop it in there, and so on. And then on this side here, I'm going to go to my sync folder, and I've got a project that I'm going to publish. So I'm going to publish this whole project, which has got quite a large geo package in it. And it's got a large elevation model, and so it's got this 1.3 gig geo package, and it's got this 1.3 gig. Actually, it's 2+ gigs because that's the actual TIFF, and then these are the overviews for it. So I'm going to drag and drop this whole thing over into this QGIS projects folder, and it's going to take a wee little while to copy over, not too long, but I'm just going to turn the zoom off again. Okay, so if you look on this little thing at the top here, you can see it's going to take 2 minutes to copy that over. And while it's copying over, I'm going to show you the same project on my local machine here. And you'll see that again, I've named the QGIS project file to exactly match the name of the folder. So this is the local copy of the project, just to show you what it looks like on my desktop when I author it, and I can go and do any kind of normal QGIS activities here. This is just it's a bunch of vector layers and elevation data set, and you can it's just a normal QGIS project. But what I'm doing now is I want to publish this as a web service. And essentially all I have to do to publish it is just drag it and drop it from my desktop computer into this folder, and then wait for it. If it's a bigger project, wait for it to copy over. In this example, it's just a file-based project, so there's no database connections involved. But we've also got workflows in place that you can put your data into Postgres and create a project which reads the data, and then using PG service files and also the QGIS AuthDB, we can work with both of those. You can actually manage the authentication so that it works seamlessly between your desktop like prototyping area and where you publish it. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of close this again for a minute and just wait for it to copy. And I'll just mention again that the machine that I'm putting it onto is just a little i3 NUC with, I think it's got 16 gigs of RAM, something. It's got a lot of RAM, but it hasn't got a very powerful processor or a particularly fast disk. But it's still pretty decent for actually setting up this whole stack and being able to publish even quite a rendering intensive project like this. Okay, so it's copied online now. So in theory, I can go to our stack here, and I can go to, I can put like OGC and then St. Lucia like this. Sorry, let me take that out. Okay, and then I get an exception, but this is QGIS Server giving the exception, and that it's expected up because I haven't put a valid request in there. And I just wanted to shout out to the OpenQuake QGIS Docker server project here. So this is what we've integrated into the stack, and again, our friends over at OpenQuake have been, I think, doing a lot of the work behind this. And this Docker image, basically, you get to run the latest. The latest, maybe not the very latest, but usually they keep quite up to date on where 3.18 is. And we've kind of integrated this and followed all the like the patterns that they propose. And one of the nice things is that we ship out of the box with the QGIS Atlas server-side plugin as well, which is again from Threelers and Etienne Trumal, which allows you to publish print maps in Atlas form, and then you can pull out one particular page of that. And it's easy to publish QGIS plugins using this Docker container that they've shared. All right, so let's take this and see if we can connect to that service from QGIS. Okay, so you can see that this is now the QGIS server. Hopefully it's clear. I'm going to just zoom in a bit here. So you can see this is now, I've got the GeoServer one that we looked at before, which had the iHeart QGIS layer in it, and now we've got the QGIS server. And these are the layers that were available in that same project. My QGIS is unfortunately caching somehow that capabilities document. Let me just see if this is going to work. If you want to see if things are working, there's the wonderful debugging environment in QGIS. So I normally just pull this up. I just pressed F12 to open it. Then you can turn this on. just to record any network requests, and then you can see the request, and I can see it's giving an error there. So it's supposed to be fetching a different one. Let me just quickly see if I can see what's going on. It should be saying layers equals somewhere.
Might be, I think if there's one invalid layer in the project, QGIS Server throws a wobble.
You know what? I think you're right. So we can easily see what's going on. So I think what happened before in us testing is that when I copied it over, because I had QGIS open on the file, I think it created a file, a well lock. And let me just quickly see. So I can say docker compose. Sorry. And then logs -f QGIS server, and I can watch exactly what's happening on the QGIS side. So there you go. Yeah, you're right. So it's giving us a message saying that cannot open the geo package. I'm just going to copy it over again because last time that fixed it. So
you can as well set that environment variable that ignores if layers are invalid.
Yeah, but except I don't want to ignore those layers. I need those layers. So, let me see. So we're going to take this one.
I mean, that just validates so that your gate capabilities work for layers that are valid. It prevents the server from not even starting up.
Okay. But I think that it is actually not able to open the geo package for some reason. If I just copy it over again, I hope magic will happen. We can do a group progress bar watching session now.
If it still doesn't work, maybe we'll have to use the ignore bad layers switch and see what happens.
Or I'll put up a different project up there.
But yeah, for viewers, there is that switch you can be aware of, environment variable, which I think it's there for like strict validation, so that you don't. It's easy to test if your data that you're publishing is valid.
Let's go and have a look again now. We'll do a refresh. It did get the capabilities because it got this back, unless it came from cache or something. But so if we need to restart the service, I'm just going to quickly go like this and see. Then it's easy to restart any service as well, which I'll show you now. I'm just going to restart it. We can just say like restart like this. And then we can just watch the logs again. And then we'll try again to see if we can. Oh, it's still complaining furiously. This time it's complaining about permissions. Okay, I'm going to make another small example and we'll just try with that. So I'll just go, I've got actually one lying here that I was going to just test with. So I'll just go up a level. And I'm just going to take one of our little sample projects here. So I thought we could use Madeira here. We're just going to drop that over here. And then you can check it by just creating another connection like this. I'm just going to copy the base part from here. I forgot to edit the actual important part.
If only had people watching over your shoulder ready to correct your mistakes before they happen.
I think I'm just going to give it a restart as well quickly. There's more permission denied issues, so let's go and see if we can just fix it. Nobody's got permissions to do anything today. Let's see if we can. Just try again. I've got a bit invalid layer in that project, so that one is a totally different issue. I'm going to make a third attempt and then we'll just move on. So let's just make a completely from scratch project here. I'll just put one layer inside of it. We'll call it Hello World, and then we'll just make a new sample layer there. Sorry for making a shapefile, everybody. You can see the internet groaning as I make a shapefile.
There are no comments yet.
They'll come, I'm sure.
I think Jitsi lags, well, YouTube lags behind Jitsi, so we'll give it a moment. The storm will follow.
3857.
Then the next one complains about the projection.
Yes, I'm carefully not using the contentious 4326 projection because I know
because 3857 is so much better.
Yeah, exactly. Charles, you understand.
Okay.
Okay, so let's draw a beautiful. I've drawn a heart already, so I've shown my heart drawing skills. So we'll just draw. Oh wait, I should first just add some background layers so that we can see where we are. I'll make a global level graffiti. Fun fact is, in the early versions of QGIS Server, I drew a hello world like this, and this was like the test data set that was shipped with QGIS Server.
That's a cool Easter egg. We can go look for it.
Well, I don't. It's probably long gone by now. Okay, so that's probably the most basic little example I can do, and let's try to see if this one's going to work. I'm gonna just actually delete these two for now. I don't know why it's giving me permissions errors. It's a new thing. Hello world, hello world, hello world. Well, we should have published my Bob Ross painting. That would have been equally satisfying. Okay, the main thing is that I named that hello world the same as the folder. Okay, and then let's go back here and try take 3. And I'm just going to go and do it. Oh, it didn't give any error messages. It also didn't give me any layers back. Just do a quick restart here.
Did you set your QGIS Server capabilities?
You don't need to for it to work, I think, but I can go check. Let's
I
check.
think you might need to put the
guru
put
here.
the checkbox on. Yeah.
Oh, it's empty. What did I do? It's reporting exactly what's in the project, which is nothing. Let's try. Let's try again like this. Okay, now it's got to work. If it doesn't work, I'll try Maya's advice. Otherwise, we'll move swiftly on to the next topic. Let's close that. It's not even sending it a request. I think I'll come back and test it again, try it a different way. Parts of the other things I wanted to show kind of need this to work as well. So I'm going to just copy that St. Lucia one over again quickly while we're chatting.
I think the nice thing is that there's multiple ways of publishing your data. So, I mean, the stack spins up the database, and then automatically you can like expose that GeoServer. But then this provides you with an alternative approach where you can actually take database layers and then publish them using QGIS Server, which is nice because it gives you like what you see is what you get kind of style editing and stuff,
styling,
which is great.
Because that's the one part of GeoServer which is a bit more difficult, is getting your styles right. Okay, well, I'm going to move on. We'll come back. We'll let that copy over, and then hopefully magic will happen and it will figure itself out. I'm going to come back to the map proxy one in a second as well, because that needs that other project to work. I'm going to I already showed you GeoServer. I'm going to show you the Mergin workflow. And I just need a second to scoot over and get my phone. So in this workflow, what we're going to do is we're going to set up the sync project between that Mergin project that I showed you that's online over here, and the database. And remember, in the wizard, it asked us some questions when we started about our credentials and things for Mergin. And what will happen when we run this command is that it's going to bring up some more services, which will do the synchronizing between Mergin and the database. I'm just going to copy and paste this, if it will let me. I'm having like the IT from hell day here. It won't let me copy and paste it. Never mind. I can probably manage to type that without copying and pasting it. Just check that I got that right. Yeah, so
impressive.
What that's going to do is, I'd like to pretend that was good memory, but that's just because I've done it probably thousands of times while I've been working on this stuff. I'm just going to go here and do logs. logs -f mergin sync, and okay. There's always one more thing, isn't there? I know exactly what the problem is here. It's puts in a spurious little bit of text there as well. We've got a nice little make command here to reinitialize everything so that we'll start it again from scratch. So this is just flushing it out again and starting the sync again. And while it's doing that, I will just bring up another terminal here. So from here, I'm going to show my phone. Okay, so now you're looking at my phone on the screen. And if I go into my input app over here, let's see just in parallel if that's, where are we? Sorry, I'm debugging on the fly here. Wait. It's not connecting to the database. Maya, sing us a song while I quickly figure out what's going on here. Database is running.
Open day karaoke session.
I just try the same thing multiple times and hope it works, but it's not really a very diagnostic way to test it.
What is the issue? Is it the Mergin sync client isn't connecting to the database?
Yeah.
So the role of the sync client is to take your project from online and bring it down.
Yeah, so it takes the project from Mergin and loads it in tables in the database. And I see there it actually had created the table. So I'm going to check from QGIS and see if it's actually made something here. QGIS demo. Okay, it's actually working. I don't know why it gave me those alarming error messages. Let's have a look and see if there's some data there. All right, okay, so.
And the Mergin sync base do not touch schema must not be touched.
You got it. So Martin from Lutra can come on one day and explain it a bit better, but essentially when you set it up, it creates two schemas, one which is like the reference copy of the database as it is in Mergin, and another one which is your local copy. And so if I want to make edits, I edit them in the local copy, and then it will make a diff between what's in this copy and what's in this one over here. You see it's got the same tables. And then apply the diff to Mergin itself and also to this copy here. So you basically, you never touch that one. You always work with this one. So looking at my phone here, the icons are not so clear. So I'll show you the whole workflow, how we can fix that. But you can hopefully see, let me see, there is a dot there, and there is a dot there, and there should be one in Italy. I'm trying to drag the phone screen around with the mouse. It's not going to work. And there's one over here, I think it is. So what I'm going to do is going to just record a new dot on the map. Well, actually, what I would like to do is just go quickly and check out the project in Mergin as well. So I'm going to install the Mergin plugin. All right, so we've got Mergins installed over here now. And I'm just going to close that again. I'm going to go over here and set up my username and password. Okay, and there's Mergin. There's the projects. I'm just going to put it somewhere like my downloads folder or something. All right, and there's the project file. So I can go over here and just change the symbology, for example, for that marker. Let's give it a big red dot. It's going to be easier to see. All right, and then I can save that and then sync it back to Mergin. Okay, and then if I go back on my phone here, and I go back to my projects, oh, of course it logged me out. I just need to hide my screen quickly while I go and find my password in my password manager.
We are still online. We just lost Tim.
Okay, I'm here. All right, so I'm logged in again. And you can see that it needs a refresh because I changed it on my desktop here. I'm trying to click on it with the mouse. And then if I go back to my home and I go to that project, it's the one that's highlighted. You can see the symbology now matches what I've done in QGIS. And so let's see if we can go back out of here, put the layer in from here. And I'm going to give it a similar styling. I'll just do it in green so we know it's different. This is the database one. Put something in the background. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll go back on my phone and I'll try to capture a point. Just do one over there, just for fun. And in a message or something like that. and save it. Okay, so on my screen I can see that new point, and then when I go back to here, I can synchronize. So that should be pushed to my desktop the next time I sync here, but in the database it should arrive in automatically. So we might need to give it, I think it's every minute or every 2 minutes, I can't remember. But anyway, it's done it already. So that data arrived directly in the database just from me saving it on my phone. So you can imagine if you've got a whole team of people out collecting data in the field, as the data is being collected, it just arrives in your Postgres database. And if I go back to the Mergin checked out project here, just synchronize it quickly. You can see that dots also arrived. This one is in the local geo package. And then, yeah, and so you've got this kind of ability to just move data from mobile into the cloud, into your Postgres database, and then publish it again in a service. So, for example, if we go back and look in GeoServer, and I just go look layers. I look in the database. But I have to set up a different store because it's in a different schema. So I'm just going to say new store. Postgres. And then I do all these questions quickly again. I'll get this from that in file. You can see there it's been behaving nicely now. I'm going to take the Postgres password. Drop that in there and make sure to set the SSL mode to require. All right, and there you can see is the points of interest layer. And I can publish that. I just need to do all the usual things here. All right, and then if I go back into QGIS and look at the data from another part of the stack, I can see here, if I go to the GeoServer, there's the POI layer, and I can drop that in, and that's published as WMS, or I can go to the WFS over here and do a refresh. And drop that in, and that's being published as, and that's giving an exception. I'm not sure why. Anyway, I won't try and figure that out right now. Let's see if by some miracle my QGIS project is working in WMS. Let's go back to here again. Okay, so I think it's, I shot the boat out the water. I blew up that option somewhere along the line, and I won't try and recover from it. Maybe we've got like 15 minutes left. We can take any questions if they've been coming in, Amy, and let's see if there's any key things that I wanted to mention.
No, there are no questions, just generally people having a chat. There was a QGIS _server_bad_layers comment.
That would be the,
I think Etienne giving us the flag.
Yep.
The only problem is I actually want those layers, otherwise I would go and set that, yeah. But I want the layers to come through. But at the moment it's, I'm just going to go and have a look at the logs again, but it's giving some strange permission.
Etienne also says you're welcome.
And while Etienne's there in the background, we should mention as well that we're planning to integrate LizMap into this whole stack as well, so that you can also, we should invite Etienne over to the chat quickly, but LizMap is amazing, like web mapping platform that's built on top of QGIS. And maybe I think they've got a demo here. Demo. Where's the demo? Yeah.
Taking that maximalist approach.
Yeah. So basically, if you think of something, we'll add it. Basically, so basically, we're busy setting it up so that as you publish a project, you also get like this whole web environment that they provide with. It's and it's got a whole lot of other clever stuff in the background for doing tile caching and even some editing tools and printing and all sorts of other nice things. So, yeah, thanks for all the nice things you guys are making over at Liz Map, 3Liz. Yeah. I think that's it. I'm going to go off and debug my my map project and see. I think it's broken. Yeah, I've got.
There is a question.
Yeah.
There was a question on Mergin sync limited to points, lines, or polygons.
Yeah, so that's Rich Greenwood. He says, is Mergin sync limited to points, or are lines and polygons supported?
Yes, any vector layer, any vector features.
And then Saber popped in and says, does offline sync of PostgreSQL and GeoPackage in Mergin create a new version?
Does offline sync of PostgreSQL in?
Does offline sync of PostgreSQL and GeoPackage in Mergin create a new version?
He should be the one telling me that because he wrote it. So what is the answer? Is it a trick question? And I'm going to get the answer wrong, and then I'll lose some friend points.
Maybe he can qualify his question in a few minutes.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, but maybe we'll let him clarify a little bit in the chat.
I don't know, Charles, if you can see Cindila's comment. If you understand
it's asking, can you remove Nginx insert part out of the stack if you already have Nginx? And I suppose the answer to that is that it's all based on Docker Compose, so you can remove components as and where you see fit.
Yep, and you can swap out anything, but it's all designed to we spin up all the services behind the Nginx. So, like for example, GeoServer is reverse proxied.
I think everything's reverse proxied.
Yeah, all the web services are reverse proxied behind Nginx, so that you get the one certificate for the front, URL, and then everything's a / sub URL off it.
So you could do it, but you'd have to be really good at configuring Nginx essentially, because otherwise you're going to introduce errors. That's pretty much the gist of it.
And Saber did qualify. He said in the Mergin history.
Oh, so I think it's a question of when you do that offline sync, does it show up in the Mergin history?
Let's go and have a look and see what happens. So he's talking about in here. If you come to look at history here. So what I didn't do was the workflow where you can actually add a point in PostgreSQL and then it syncs back to here. So I think this one was adding the one new dot. But you can also go in QGIS. Yeah, let's just go back out here. You can go in QGIS and edit this layer, and then I think if you add a point here, and then it should sync into the Mergin. Okay, and then if I save my edit there, then what should happen is that you should see your version 7 appear in here. So, if I'm not getting you right, you jump in the call and can clarify a bit for us. But if we did a refresh here at some point, we'll see, there we go. It was very quick. So there's version 8, and that point that I captured in my desktop is now going to be available on all my mobile devices. So if I go back to my shared screen, which I've lost on my phone, I would see that, but I can also show it to you here. If I go check the project out again, close without saving, I open this project again. You see only 4 dots, but if I do the sync now, there's the 5th dot coming. So you've got this really nice streamlined thing where you can capture data in Postgres. It lands up in your mobile, lands up in your synchronized copies, and Sab was saying it's adding a history entry in here, so you can see that new entry came in. Cool. I will go fix my little gremlins there, and we'll come and do a second round in a future QGIS Open Day and show you how we progress. If anybody's interested to help build out the stack, Etienne, we'd love to have some help getting the 3lers working nicely. And and we can also show in the future some things with doing ODM and OpenStreetMap integration and so on.
That would be awesome. We can make a series out of it.
And I didn't even give Charles his moment in the sun to explain. Do you want to explain a little bit about what you're doing on the front end side? But maybe you can share your screen.
Well, I think the core stack is probably more important. I mean, that's just one little static site generator. But I mean, essentially anything with location intelligence, like the technologies behind them are complicated. And in the open source ecosystem, I think it tends to seem a bit like fragmented. Everyone's working on different things, and then whenever we set things up, in production, everybody's got to do all the configuration to get the systems to talk to each other. So I think the goal here is just to build one big massive Docker Compose. But like, if we can get as much stuff, like I suppose, integrated as possible in talking to each other, that it's essentially like, I mean, in essence, where you would double click on an executable, now we're just saying Docker Compose up or make configure or whatever to do essentially the same thing. Which I suppose, like, later on, maybe it could be built into something crazy like Helm charts. I think that would just be really complicated at this point, though. But,
we looked at Kubernetes, but it will probably come later. But we wanted to be able to do that. You can spin it all up on a single server without knowing too much about container infrastructure and all that kind of stuff, and Kubernetes. So the idea is that you follow the README, and the steps are basic enough that you can more or less cut and paste them into a Linux machine, and then get everything running up. And then this is what Charles has been working on, is building like a content management system in front of it as well, so that you can get a site with an about page and
links to all your services, because when the client lands on your server, they don't know what they're looking for. So essentially the concept is just add a very simple content management system with like a static site generator, and then essentially you could have like a Git repo with markdown pages, and then it generates these. Well, I mean, this is the index page, but if you go into the document section, Tim, I think under about, documents and maps. So you can add different content, and you can add custom code blocks. So you can add maps or like kind of rich media. If you go to the maps, I think the demo map is
just before I go there, just explain what that is. So this is basically a way to describe a map in Markdown, and then it will add like a block into the site.
So that code block there is essentially metadata that's embedded in a text file. It's YAML essentially, but that's stuck in a Markdown file, which becomes a page, and that's the configuration for the demo map. So at this point, it just supports a single WMS. And then different layers. So essentially, if you publish the QGIS project, you would make a text file, or make a map template, and then you would use the WMS or WFS for that QGIS server project, and then just specify which layers you want to load into a map. and then like the system, when it builds out the static site, it generates a new page. So I did have a leaflet one, but it didn't have get feature info request. So at this point, it's just open layers. And I think in Maps demo, I don't think the get feature info is working right now, Tim. I think there's an issue with the WMS. Oh, it's working on your system. For me, it was giving me complaints with SSL. Never mind.
This is what, if you put in one of those blocks that we just looked at, you'll get a page that looks like this, and then you can go and write content next to the map, and kind of, it's like the skinny version of having a Liz map, you know. So if you just want a simple map without all the extra goodies that you get from this map.
Yeah, like you don't necessarily want to show everyone all, like GIS data has a lot of other stuff that's attached to it, like attributes and all the multiple layers and stuff. But a lot of people, I think, like if you think of most websites, you know, it's literally just some kind of annotation and then like a slippy map underneath. So this goes like a step beyond that standard open layers leaflet thing. And I think there's a couple of additional widgets on the bottom of the page, and just some content that you can attach in the sidebar.
Yeah, so you can see your location, the bounding box, and so on. All right. Anyway, hopefully somebody out there likes what we're doing and wants to come and participate in it. And if you do, we do have a GitHub repo. It's all open, you know, all open source and what have you. And here's the link for the project page. We welcome pull requests and helping if you're trying to run the stack yourself. Like I said, you're coming in a bit early if you're trying now, because as you can see, we've still got a few bugs that we're sorting out. But most of the stuff. I think
the end goal is to be able to just have like a cherry pick interface where, you know, everything is pre-configured, but you just cherry pick the components you want and then just spin it up and it just works.
Yeah, like we'll have a little in the startup wizard, we'll say, do you want GeoServer, do you want ODM, do you want map proxy, and you just tick off all the things that you want, and then they'll get included in the stack.
All right, brilliant. I will put that link into the video description as well, just so that people have access to it. Yeah, just last couple of comments of people saying perfect, and they'll have a look and are keen to get involved.
Great. Well, come on, all you maximalists, and come and join us.
Big picture thinking.
Counter-revolution. Right.
My bugs are
going back to the Victorian era, where more is more.
Thanks to Charles and Admire, who've done a lot of great heavy lifting to make all this stuff come together as well. Thank you. All right. Happy Friday.
All right. Cheers. Bye, everyone.
Brilliant. Thanks, gents.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone who stuck it out and was with us for the QGIS Open Day. We will see you all next month.
All right. Thank you, Amy and Nicholas, for all your organizing work. Thank you so much. Cheers now.